This is a brief overview of the glycemic index. There is some information about the glycemic index in our nutrition mastery modules if you're looking for a little bit more in-depth information, but we're going to just have a cursory presentation of glycemic index here. And the reason why we're going to do that is I will tell you a brief story about a friend of mine who is an athlete who I was working with for about 4 years. And in the endurance athletic community, we talk a lot about glycemic index. In fact, everything that we discuss and learn as athletes is based on the glycemic index. So after about 4 years of working together, my friend, an athlete, looks to me and says, "Hey, when you say that word glycemic index, I don't really know what you mean." And we got a good chuckle out of it. But it does bring to light that glycemic does kind of sound a bit like medical jargon. And so it's easy to just tune that out. So, very simply here, we'll discuss what glycemic index is without overcomplicating it. The index itself is a scale from 1 to 100, and it is going to rank how high and how quickly a food is going to spike your blood sugar. The only foods that can spike your blood sugar are foods that have sugar in them, which is the carbohydrate group. This is why carbohydrates get that finger pointing evil label because they are the ones responsible for spiking blood sugar, which sometimes when we are active is beneficial. But if we're sitting at our desk and working, it's not super beneficial. So hence the ugly name for the carbohydrate, but it's really just it's just mean to the carbohydrate. Okay. So we are looking at a glycemic index. A glycemic index that is high is closer to 100, and one that is low is closer to 1. The midpoint of this scale is 55, not quite halfway. I didn't make the rule. That's what it is. It's 55. So anything above 55 is considered higher, and the closer you get to 100, the higher it becomes. And conversely, as you get lower, the lower it becomes on the GI scale or glycemic index. So I'll give you guys an example just to kind of put it into your head of two fruits. So fruits and vegetables are carbohydrates. They do contain sugar. As you can tell, broccoli is not going to contain a lot of sugar. It is going to contain a lot of fiber, but it does have some glucose in it, and that's what makes it a carbohydrate. Okay, so we're going to look at fruits. I'm going to use an apple and a pineapple as our example. If you bite into an apple, it is crunchy. You must chew it extensively because it has fibers, and those fibers are very closely packed together. It's not a super sweet fruit, although it is sweeter than a broccoli. So it doesn't have a ton of sugar. It does have a ton of fiber. When it goes into the stomach is going to need some time to undo that fiber, and it's going to release those sugars, which wasn't a whole bunch of sugar to begin with. So it's going to be a lower glycemic index. Now we look at our pineapple. The pineapple is very sweet, and we can pull those fibers apart with our hands if we need to. And the stomach can do that very quickly. So we've got a lot more sugar, and we can break apart those fibers and release those sugars more quickly. So that's going to be a higher glycemic index food. So when we look at the rule of thumb here for glycemic index, fruits that are hard and like apple or berries, those are going to be lower glycemic index. They've got a lot of fiber in them. So our tropical fruits are a little bit less crunchy, and those are going to typically be higher glycemic index foods. Now, there's outliers for everything, but that's a good example for you to keep in mind when you're trying to understand what is the glycemic index and why do I care? We care because it spikes our blood sugar, and if we're active, that's fantastic. But if we're sitting at our desk, it's likely just going to get stored as fat. It has no other option. So carbohydrates are the energy. And if we are moving around, that's great. If we are sedentary, we're not going to use it to build, cellular walls or that's the job of the protein and the amino acid. Carbohydrate really The function is just energy. 95% of what a carbohydrate do is to provide energy. There are a short list of other things to do, but again, we're keeping it simple here. So if we just think of carbohydrate as our energy food, we want to understand what we're doing. So we don't want to load up on a bunch of high glycemic index food when we're like right before bed, or maybe on a day where we're like not getting our exercise, it's an off day. And this is why we discuss glycemic index. And hopefully this has cleared up some questions, not created more, more confusion. If it has, please reach out and ask some questions.